Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to our series, Women in E-Mobility, Accelerating Women in the E-Mobility Sector. I'm Dr. Shelley Francis. I'm co-founder and managing partner here at EV Noir. EV Noir's work centers on electric, connected, shared, and autonomous mobility solutions. We focus on two areas of work. So it's e-mobility best practices and e-mobility diversity, equity, and inclusion. So during this series, if you have not had a chance to watch it yet, we'll talk with leaders working across the e-mobility ecosystem. So we focus on engaging women leaders, and our conversations really focus on a myriad of topics, including their career trajectory, how they got started working on electrification, as well as what it's like working in the sector and emerging issues and trends. So as many of you are aware, the electrification sector is growing exponentially. There's no shortage of opportunities. And with so many opportunities abound, we expect to see continued growth in the space driven by manufacturing, climate impacts, and policy investments. So there's no better time than the present to dive in. So today's session is brought to you by our team here at EV Noir and EV Her. And we're so excited to talk with Patty Monahan. She was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsome of California as one of the 5 commissioners on the California Energy Commission. So our team and our viewers are so excited to hear from you, Commissioner Monahan. Welcome to Women in E-Mobility.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I think this is such a cool series.
Thank you so much. We are tickled and delighted to have you here today. So thank you for joining us. And so let's go ahead and get started.
All right, let's dive in.
All right. So to start things off, let's give our viewers a little bit more context about your work and your expertise. So let's first start with learning more about the role of the California Energy Commission. What's their vision, mission, and then tell us about what you do in your role.
The California Energy Commission is the lead energy policy planning in the state of California. And so we are laser focused on helping the state reach its goals for a 100% clean energy system that's affordable, reliable, and safe. I am the lead for several issues, including transportation, and really our role at the Energy Commission is to fund the build out of infrastructure for zero emission transportation. So chargers for battery electric vehicles, hydrogen stations for fuel cell electric vehicles, and to help the state sort of plan out what the infrastructure needs are going to be to meet our goals, and also what the impacts are to our energy system. So as we plug more things into the grid, which is great for climate, we also want to make sure that these vehicles are what I like to say, good citizens of the grid. So we want to charge our vehicles at times when we have a lot of sunshine. So you can literally run your vehicles on sunshine, and you're providing support for the grid and helping California reach our 100% clean grid goals. So it's a really exciting, fun time to be in this space. I've been working on transportation most of my career for decades. And I feel like this is the moment I've been waiting for. This is the moment when zero emission transportation is within our grasp. And we just have to make sure the conditions are right. So we have enough chargers, they work, people have a good experience, they're accessible, especially for people who live in multifamily buildings or don't own their homes. This has to be a solution that works for everyone. And the Energy Commission is really trying to make sure the infrastructure is in place and we're doing the right energy planning to reach our goals.
That's really exciting. And definitely we need the work that the Energy Commission is doing to help accelerate and amplify EV adoption. It's also really exciting to see women like yourself in these types of national, leadership roles, because one of the things that we know from research is that women may be the key to unlocking the EV industry's potential. And let me explain why I say that. We've largely been overlooked as consumers and contributors to this growing field. But then on the one hand, we are making and influencing over 80% of vehicle purchasing decisions. But then when you look at what's the reflection in the workforce, it's much smaller. We're right around 25% or so. So clearly there's a lot of work ahead of us, but in the meantime, let's talk for a minute about your experiences as a woman in the space and what that means in the emerging EV, well, not even emerging, but in the EV industry today.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've been in this for a long time. I've been in the energy space pretty much my whole career, but in the transportation space for over 30 years, which is kind of crazy. And when I first started, I worked at a nonprofit called the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I was a research analyst in their clean vehicles program. And I was one of the few women in the transportation space, especially from the analytical side, from the research side. And I would enter a room and it would just be all men. And that was pretty consistent. And from my experience, sort of what I learned from that is the importance of being the first woman. And I think there's firsts all the time, and it's not just women that face this. People of color face this. Transgendered people face this. Like you sometimes enter a room and you're the only one. And it's an awkward, uncomfortable place. And it's the only way that change happens. And I remember when I first started a nonprofit that still exists today, I'm not going to say their name, but they came to me and they said, look, we have this board. We don't have any women. It's like a 30-person board. Will you please join as the first woman? And I was like, kind of taken aback, because I was pretty young in my career. But then I was like, okay, nervously. I was like, okay. And I do think like that's the only way change happens. And you've got to just say yes, even when you're nervous and it's uncomfortable, because change, it can happen slow, it can happen fast, but it only happens when people step into uncomfortable roles.
That's true. And so some of that growth happens when you're in uncomfortable positions and uncomfortable spaces. So I want to talk a little bit more about that in terms of like your career path, because obviously you're now a commissioner of the California Energy Commission. You've had an impressive track record. You talked about your position at the Union of Concerned Scientists, but you've also been in leadership roles at the Energy Foundation, at the EPA, and as well with energy consultancies. So in terms of just like your path, what did that look like? Did you always know that you wanted to work in energy or transportation? Can you talk to us a little bit about what that path was like for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I started again, I studied environmental science as an undergrad at Berkeley. And at that time it was new, people were like, what is that? And
Right.
I mean, EPA was around. So, I mean, there was definitely attentiveness to the environment. It wasn't, but it was still new. And I decided for grad school, I really wanted to focus on climate change. I felt like this is the seminal issue of my generation. And I want to be a solutions oriented person in this space. And so I focused on reducing carbon emissions. And again, it just was new. Like now everybody's into this, but at that time, people didn't recognize that climate change existed. It was still, the science was, young. But for me, I did feel extremely motivated to really tackle the biggest issue that I saw facing humanity. And that has been a motivator throughout my career. And I think, for those of us that have a public service orientation, and who knows why, we're just born with this idea, like our job is to serve and to help and to be, part of the way we navigate through a challenging time. And so I really have been kind of consistent in that space. I feel like I ended up in transportation a little bit whimsically, but because I went to the Union of Concerned Scientists, there was a position in transportation, and I really I learned a lot from that experience. And then I became just kind of obsessed with this idea of how do we move to a complete zero emission future, and especially motivated to reduce harmful diesel pollution. That was a big factor in my choice.
Okay. That's We love hearing about each viewer's path because everybody's path is very different, and it's important for folks to see who are considering career opportunities in space that there's not this linear route. It's a curved road. It could be an S curve. And
Yes.
so, you can come to this space from all different backgrounds. One of the things that we've seen that has been helpful for many is like having the opportunity to like either do a fellowship or some type of training program. And so we started a training program ourselves called the E-Mobility Fellowship Program. And so our fellowship program takes young people, they could be in a trade and technical school, they could be at a historically black college or university, they could be at a veteran serving institution, a Hispanic serving institution. But the idea is getting young people or individuals from underrepresented communities, particularly communities that have been disproportionately impacted by transportation emissions. We take them through this 9-month training program that exposes them to all the different facets of e-mobility and electrification. They do a capstone project on their respective campuses because peer learning and sharing what they learn back with their community is critically important. And maybe we can get other young people on those campuses excited and participate in the next year's cohort. But at the culmination of that 9-month program, then they do summer internships that also give them those hands-on experiences in the space. So what we're ultimately hoping to accomplish is that we're creating this next cadre of professionals who are going to take up the reign and address some of those really challenging issues that we're facing, but they're also doing it from the perspective of their lived experiences and bringing that perspective that may not always be represented in the room. So I said all that to say I'm leading up to a question, but what do you think is the importance of like having those types of training opportunities or even those K through 12 STEAM and STEM programs? Because of course we don't want to just wait till people are in post-secondary institutions. We also want to capture them when they're younger so that we start getting them excited about career paths in this sector. So what are your thoughts about those types of training opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really critically important that we expand our network to engage young people. And, what you're saying about like where you come from can really, people have doors open because their parents have access. And how do we create a world where young people view this like plethora of possibilities, no matter where they come from or what challenges they've faced, what headwinds they've faced growing up. And this idea of just exposing people, showing them that there are these really dynamic paths where they can make a change in the world, make money, support their families, and also just kind of break through some of the institutionalized racism and barriers that people face. So I love the fact that you guys have this fellowship program. I was telling you, I'm hoping I can get one of your fellows to work in my office. And just, I've had really great experiences with young people in my office. And it's important for me as kind of like a seasoned professional to have fresh eyes and to really think through like, well, what are the messages that are going to be most engaging for the broadest audience? And young people bring that dynamism into an office. So it's like this combination of really giving people an opportunity, a vista that they wouldn't otherwise have to expand their possibilities, and also bringing what their lived experience to the office place, which it's a two-way street.
Oh, it's incredible. And, just being around them, like you said, it's a fresh face, new perspectives, a new way to look at things. I love the new energy. And it's so important in order to create that space for learning and engaging, because not only do they learn, like we learn from them. So it's really like a mutually beneficial opportunity and experience. Kind of going along with that theme in terms of offering these experiences for young people and other professionals who want to enter the space. along those lines, what do you think are some ways that we can get more women engaged in the space? We were talking earlier that, we're making 80% of household buying decisions. We're making, a high percentage of decisions about car buying as well. But then when you look at the industry, we're at 25-30% of the industry. So like, what are some tangible things that we can work on or do to try to increase the number of women who are represented in the space?
Yeah, well, and one thing you were saying too about what women make purchasing decisions and, the idea of changing your fuel from something where you go to a gas station to something where you plug in, and there's like a learning curve around that as well. So I think that this idea that as we try to broaden the number of women and people of color, and I would just say like any community that has been disenfranchised in some way, we want this to be an inclusive movement. And I think the more we connect with people from an emotional heart level, the more we're going to bring in that kind of diversity. I think when it's like a stagnant kind of like just facts without a lot of tangible emotion behind them around, connection to family, connection to clean air, connection to a climate safe future, those sorts of, I would call it heart-based messages are going to bring more people in than kind of the cold clinical, just the 0 to 30 acceleration, low end score. That's not going to bring people in necessarily. I think it's this broader message.
No, I agree. I think what we're seeing as we, meet young people from across the country, as well as, other folks who are working in this space who are that kind of younger generation, they're looking for a place that is making an impact, like environmentally or in the world, and they can kind of see there's like some kind of social impact or mission driven organization that seems to be what we're hearing from them in terms of like where they're looking to like, plant a flag and start their career or just, grow their career. They're looking for a place where they can, have an impact, but also can see how that organization is having an impact.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to make it fun.
Yeah, exactly. And have fun doing it. That's true. That's true. We're tackling a lot of serious issues and serious policies, but we have to learn and make sure that we're having fun at the same time. So that's very, very important. So speaking of having fun, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and I'm going to do something that we do that it's our 5 fun facts. So we get to learn a little bit more about you and what you do when you step away from work. So first, 5 questions, real fun, easy questions. So the first one is, where's your favorite place to vacation? And you have 3 choices. If you could go to the beach, the city, or the mountains, where would you go? Okay,
so I'm not going to do a good job answering your question, but I want to say like, I really try to travel with a just say yes perspective and to be happy wherever I am. And that can be, that's in a big city I love to eat. So going to like some fun, cool restaurant when I'm in a city. I love to backpack. So mountains I love to snorkel and swim. And really, I try to just be in this like childlike, just say yes to wherever you are and be happy and explore.
That's a really positive way to approach like life in general, as well as traveling.
I can get you into some dangerous things, but mostly it's really good.
Okay. So when you're traveling and saying yes to different experiences, what would you describe as like your best travel hack? Like, do you have like some like travel tip that you use that never fails you?
Well, I would say travel light. That's so in fact, until recently, I threw out my bag and I was going to Korea recently. And so I had to check in my bag. But in general, I never check in a bag. I bring like a small amount, and you don't need very much when you travel. You need much less than you think.
That's true.
And it's a lot easier to travel light. So I would say, don't check a bag.
Okay, no, that's great advice. I always feel like if I usually have like one carry-on and a backpack, and it always is very freeing if I get to do like a day or an overnight trip where I can only take a backpack. I just feel like so light and just like, okay, I'm gonna like conquer the world with just my backpack. All right. So question 3. So okay, when you're traveling, what's the one thing, and besides your phone, what's the one thing that you won't leave home without?
Yeah, either my Kindle or my iPad, because I love to read and I like to download books wherever I go, sometimes watch movies too, but
Okay.
just like to have that freedom to be able to, it used to be, you had to travel with like a big, like a paperback, and now you can have 30 books at your
Yeah.
fingertips. So that's my never leave home without.
Okay, no, I like that. It's nice to, I like to read too. And I do like having the book that I can touch, but obviously with traveling, it just makes more sense to have like a digital book. So
Yeah.
definitely can relate to having a Kindle or an iPad with you. All right. So speaking of reading, what are you reading right now? Like, do you have a favorite book that you're reviewing or reading?
Well, I'm listening to an audiobook right now. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And
Okay.
when you get these audiobooks where they're just so well read
Mhm.
and they adopt the different voices, and so I'm loving this audiobook. Yeah, I'm really
Okay.
loving it. Check it out.
And it's tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow.
Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's from Shakespeare, but it's a book
Okay.
about two, I mean, it's kind of weird, two video game producers, one woman, one guy, like in the early days of video games. And
Mhm.
it's really creative and interesting. Yeah, I really am
Okay.
enjoying it.
All right. Well, viewers, check out that option. So then my last question is, what form of mobility did you last use? Did you use rideshare, an e-bike, your personal vehicle, light rail perhaps, or maybe an airplane?
Um, I went for a bike ride this morning, very early.
Great.
I'm a, I, I'm a road biker. In COVID, I used to have to commute
Mhm.
a wicked like 3 hours a day to
Oh, wow.
Sacramento from where I live,
Okay.
it's rough.
Mhm.
And during COVID, I got really into road biking, so I love my road bike. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I did.
Okay, that's excellent. During COVID, I started biking too. It just happened that my birthday was a few months before official COVID happened.
Oh
And I was
wow.
trying to figure out what to get myself because I usually try to get myself something for my birthday. And I figured, like, I should get a bike. I haven't had a bike since I was a kid. And so it came in handy because that was one of the activities that I could do with like friends and family, to feel a sense of normalcy during this really crazy time.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed getting that time on the bike. So,
Well,
okay, that's great.
come to Berkeley and we'll go for a bike ride.
Okay, absolutely. I love that. So actually, those are our questions for the 5 fun facts, and thank you for playing along and doing that. But before we wrap up our conversation, I do have one other question. I just wanted to circle back in terms of like we were talking about like different ways that we can engage individuals and folks who are curious about the electrification or transportation space for career opportunities. And so one of the things I think that's also important to talk about is mentorship. And so, thinking about getting more women engaged in this space, mentorship, allyship is really important. Can you talk about maybe the importance of mentors or mentorship along the way in your career path and maybe share something in terms of like words of wisdom that they might have provided to you that has made an impact in your success?
Yeah. I love that question. And I want to say that when I was young, I couldn't think of mentors. I didn't
Mhm.
really have very many
Mhm.
mentors. There were just, most of my teachers were men and most of my bosses were men. And I just didn't have very many. And then
Right.
I was entering kind of a rough patch in my career. And I was at a job where they gave sabbaticals, which was quite luxurious. And I decided in my sabbatical, I was going to interview women and see what they did when they encountered obstacles in their career. And so I interviewed Ann Smith, who was the first woman and person of color CEO of Southern California Gas. I interviewed
Mhm.
Mary Nichols, who at the time was the chair of the Air Resources Board. And Britta Gross, I don't know if you know her from General Motors, and just a bunch of different women in my space. And they gave me such good advice in terms of recognizing that everybody goes through hard times in their, like everybody does. But you have to get through it. Like you can't let it knock you down.
Right.
And I came back really invigorated to tackle this challenge, this one person who was a real challenge in the workplace, and hold him accountable for what he was doing. And I actually got a number of women friends that really supported me through that time, colleagues, and they, that was really helpful. But this idea, like, everybody goes through hard times.
Right.
You need people who you can count on, who are going to be your allies through those hard times. And you have to fight. You have to, in a professional, way.
Right. Yes, of course.
Like that idea that everybody who is, I don't know if at the top is the right way to put it, but everybody who is rising in their career encounters obstacles. And you just got to persevere in a professional manner where you stay true to your integrity.
Right. Well, I think that's really wonderful, sage advice. And I hope like the viewers are soaking that in, because that's exactly the type of feedback and perspective that we really want to hear and that we value, with this series. And so, of course, we could talk all day, Commissioner. I know you have commissioner activities that you have to tend to, but we just want to tell you, just thank you so much for coming and sharing some time with us today and, being a part of the Women in E-Mobility series.
Well, thank you. This is wonderful. And I want to thank you and Evie Noir for all you're doing to advance a more equitable transportation future. I just think I really admire your work, and it was really fun to be part of this. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And of course, like it takes a village to do this work. So we need your support. We want to support you and your colleagues because together we can really amplify and hopefully accelerate or continue to accelerate multimodal EV adoption. So that is definitely our charge. And we're glad to be in this space working together with you and our other colleagues.
Excellent. All right. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. So again, we would like to, thank you to Commissioner Monahan for taking time to be with us today. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in and to our team at EV Noir for supporting this series. So please stay tuned and check out our other sessions. And then, of course, follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, IG, Twitter, EV Noir, Dr. Evie Shelley. And on behalf of EV Noir and Evie Her, this is Dr. Shelley Francis signing off for today, and we'll see you next time when we chat more on the Women in E-Mobility series. So take care.